Okay, I think we're live. All right. Okay. So hi, everybody. Welcome to our Prejudice and Anxiety workshop. I personally have dealt with prejudice and anxiety, so I feel like it's really important for us to implement things or workshops like this into to our community. So today we have two amazing hosts with us, Alex Saltzman.
Hi.
Who has dealt with anxiety as well. So Alex, do you want to tell us about
Do I want to tell you about my experiences with anxiety? Hello?
And you're a little choppy, so your sound's going in and out.
Should we give it like a few minutes to let people join in before we start?
that? Sounds like a plan to me.
Maybe like 5 minutes.
What was it you said? Because I just couldn't hear the last part.
Yeah, I was asking if you wanted to tell us about your experiences with anxiety.
Yeah. So we'll go for the
Hopefully
top,
that's better.
from the top in like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Cutting off, Brianne.
Yeah.
Oh, the joys of virtual meetings.
Okay. Am I still coming in choppy?
Sounds better.
Yeah, you sound better.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna have to go off camera, which is totally fine by me because that's helping with my anxiety. So let's do this. All right. So yeah, Alex, tell us about your experiences with anxiety.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of experience with anxiety. It's like basically like my profession in a way. Like and it varies a lot. Like, I'll have calm periods and more anxious periods, and it's learning about what the triggers are for me, because on top of like the anxiety, I'm like also dealing with PTSD. So like kind of could mesh together and be just kind of like a hell of a mix at times. And like, the thing with me and my anxiety is I'm learning that at times I just got to say, hey, I got to step away, because if I don't, I'm not going to be basically the person I want to be to people, because like I'll be more, on a tightrope, tight leash or whatever. And like, it could be easier for me to like want to like lash out if I feel like a lot of pressure, like some word triggers me, something triggers me, and then like I'm like, boom, I'm off the edge, or I feel like I need to just go on a walk for like hours to like calm myself down. And like just last night was like a perfect example for me, because I had a lot going on, and I went to like a friend that I was reconnecting with, went to the club with him, and then I decided I wanted to leave earlier because of everything going on, like at home, personal life and stuff. And I couldn't find the ticket for my coat, right?
Right.
And I'm trying to describe the coat to them, and then they're like, "Oh, we can't give you the coat," right? They're like, "Oh, we can't, just believe that it's your coat." So then I started like cursing up a storm, right? And I'm like, you mother effers, all that. Like, give me my effing. I need my effing. I'm like, I can't be here right now. Like, you don't understand. Like, I got something going. I can't. And thankfully, in this case, like the security guard was like an understanding guy. He came over, uh, pulled me to the side. Just like he understood what I was going through, though. Like, I've definitely had times where that wouldn't be the case too. And like on the train or something, and like it's someone else, it's a cop, and they threaten to fight me. But like there's different in like situations, and like just like sometimes a slight escalation at times will get my anxiety to a point where it's like that flight or fight mode.
Right.
And I guess it just really depends on the day, because some days I'll be more agitated and be like what do you want, right? What do you want from me, basically? Like I don't know, I don't have the money, I don't have what you're looking for, like I'm trying to take out my rent money or something, and they and the rent money had been like, we were behind on rent because the rent money was stolen by someone, like intercepted in the mail, and I'm stressed out, right? And then I go to like get it from a Western Union, right? And then the guy asked me if I want to like, I'm like, yo, I need like 1,000 for the rent, right? And then he's like, 1,000 singles, and the fact that he said 1,000 singles made me want to punch him in the face, because I'm like, why would I want 1,000 singles? This is my rent, right? And so that case is like a time where it's like, oh, I'm agitated, I'm more in fight mode. But then there's other times where it's like I'm in complete like, oh, like, why are you like creating a problem? I'm not looking for problems. And then I go into complete the withdrawn mode, if you will, right? And I'm just like, yo, everybody kind of leave me alone for like 5 days or something, and I'm just gonna go and like walk through the park or something, calm myself down, need to get off of any sort of social media, anything like that, because like just stories on social media may even like add to my anxiety and trigger me a bit more. Like, it's like, and the thing is, I don't really always know like at what point for me it's going to be I'm anxious and I need to like withdraw from the situation, or other times where I'm like, I'm tired of this, just like try me, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think that's something that a lot of people go through, especially whether like if it's something like with me kind of complicated with like complex PTSD or something like that, where it's like you have like all this anxiety, you have a lot of other things going on in your life, is like almost all of us do, and then you have these memories that may come back up, and it's just like, it's sometimes that overwhelming feeling gets to the point where like you either need to completely remove yourself, or you're gonna like want to lash out. And I think you see that as individuals and as like group events, like where it's like people could just have enough with something for a certain point, and you can't always determine what that point is for anyone,
Right.
Because I can't even tell what that is for me. So lately, what I've been trying to do,
where you express kind of what anxiety is like for you, right? Do you want to share it?
what was that?
Would you like to share the poem that expresses what anxiety is like for you?
Definitely. But yeah, so that's sort of my experience with anxiety, but I kind of wrote a poem for it, just kind of to express that. So here it is. It has like two parts to it, like a more mellow and a more intense part. When the river it tumbles and the wind whispers nothing, and the orange leaves brown and crumble on grass, I step out my shadow, tortured like embers that burn from smokestacks where my ancestors passed. There's a rain in the desert as rare as tears left on eyelids. There's a chance that the sunrise will bring better days. I tug tight to my chest as my heart races like horses, as I know when I watch all of them gaze. I might scream at the moonlight or break down and shiver, succumb to some tablets, smoke till I pass. Wish to cuddle in blankets as snow paints the skyline. I pace back and forth in the ramble and curse in my mask. Eyes are a drizzle like fog off the ocean. My stomach, it turns when I enter their halls. Comment and mention dab cigars in their whiskey as I run back to red bricks and seldom I fall. Now hold up, let's change this real quick. Loud calls yelling, sounds in the distance, pots clattered, glass shattered, bullet missing inch. Walking over the ground where Frank's throat got slit. Guns trigger basements where my mama was taken. I think back, memories are relapses. It ain't static, it just gets worse. I stare in a barrel, my chest aches, wait, my stomach hurts. I bag $30 of quarters, increase my heart rate for McDonald's and pizza. Hell, that still increases my heart rate to keep me from starving and acting in bad faith. Who knew a man's hunger will get him sent upstate? At least then I won't get no Facebook updates. Fist punching the door, knocking like cops do. Paranoid, almost jump out the fire escape, fight if I got to. Car pulled up, I ducked, life flashed before the sound did. Hear life ring, I feel my torso before I open my eyelids. If I bleed, I wonder what the cost is. When he reached in his pocket, I hid my fist. I prepared for his blade, I tightened my wrist. He pulled out some cardboard, I laughed like, man, what the hell is this? But still I can't sit with my back to a window without feeling anxious. All right, let's hit it. My mind messed up, I lose control every time a cold wind blow. My brain explode, engine revs, heart jumps through holes. Beaten down, lost my soul. Can't seem to separate myself from those anxious dreams. Like what is real? I question everything it seems I've ever seen. Sometimes I sit and ponder, my mind bakes up schemes. Do I grab the Prozac like mama, take Klonopin or smoke marijuana? Hell, lately I've been understanding what makes me tick and what makes a junkie stick. If the stress too real, a needle may help me split from reality. Grab the hot spoon. Real life too real, no need to quit. For now I ain't started, just stare at my Narcan kit. Freeze the clip. I'm not talking bananas. Reminisce on shorty smoking crack, drinking Modelo's, rocking red bandanas. In a stairway with loose condoms and piss. Let's talk about this. So yeah, that was basically, kind of describing some of like what my triggers are for anxiety, as well as like just, through things that have happened in my life and things that I've also been, feeling as I go through those things and process all of those emotions. So I just, wanted to give everyone a chance to also be able to speak on like their takeaways, right? And how they deal with their anxiety, how they're able to relate.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Great poem, Alex. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Makeda. I'm a doctor of clinical and health psychology, and I specialize in working with individuals with anxiety disorders. And you painted so many dynamic aspects of anxiety in that poem, just from both understanding there is that, am I going to fight in this moment, or am I going to run? Am I going to avoid? Am I going to cope with it, try to escape with it through food or drugs, and just the trauma that comes, especially for people who come from historically marginalized, groups. We're faced with so much trauma, and then we're normally cut off from those resources to deal with that trauma. So I loved how and even in the beginning of your poem, you kind of expressed some of that hope, of working through it, as you took us through that story, and kind of like how you're, existing with that anxiety. So awesome poem. And I'm definitely, excited to hear what other people, your take, how you coexist with your anxiety, rather than just trying to pretend it's not there, but how are you living with that?
Yeah, for me, it's definitely writing. I know Alex mentioned a lot like tics and triggers and like just processing those tics and triggers. For me, a way that I can process my tics and triggers is just by writing down everything. So sometimes that's even like journaling, sometimes it's a poem, and then revisiting that poem and realizing, like, oh, okay, like, something upset me, within that poem. Not within me writing the poem, but the reasoning for why I wrote the poem, because something triggered me. So, yeah, writing is definitely a tool for me when it comes to coping with my tics, triggers, and yeah, just processing and realizing that they are there and they are very real. So yeah, Alex, did you have a prompt for us so that we can write through some of our tics and triggers?
I mean, I just like wanted to see though, like if you were able to like really just throw it out for everybody to like express their sentiments on what their tips and triggers are, and like see what their sort of takeaways are from this and how they could relate. That was mainly the direction I wanted to take this in.
So Ray, and you wanted everyone to, oh, go ahead, Chanson.
Well, I know like one of my tics or triggers is like if somebody is cussing at me or fussing at me, like I don't like to be yelled at. So um like if I'm yelled at or something like that, I'll shut down if I'm at work or something. Or um if I'm at home, I just go by myself. Um like that's my way of dealing with it because I'm afraid of how I would react. So I just shut down mostly.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like I've heard that from a lot of my clients is that they're afraid of how they'll react. So it's just like, let me just mute everything out. Let me shut it all down. And they begin to just internalize those feelings versus truly expressing how they feel and what they want. And over time, that kind of builds up a lot more anxiety for one, because we're avoiding the thing that we're afraid of, which is, am I going to blow up? Am I going to be able to manage my emotions in that moment? And then over time, that builds a lot more resentment in ourselves. I definitely am an internalizer. That's definitely one of my anxieties was expressing my needs and how I feel about certain things. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that, Jansen.
I agree with that too. I definitely do shut down sometimes, and almost like we kind of get mad at other people for not understanding when it's really we have to communicate that we're not comfortable with that. And some people they take it's like it's natural for them to want to gravitate towards shutting down, and some people need that space to kind of process what's going on. Like if I shut down, it's like, all right, I need a moment to think about what just happened, how I want to react, how I want to respond rather than react, because they're two different things, and it's hard sometimes to find the balance between the two, and just to genuinely keep going without letting that thing sink in and process, because then I just more anxiety builds up, because you're like, okay, I'm trying to gather information for what just went on, but at the same time trying to move on with what's going on at the moment, and it's like a clash. You know how to handle the two. They just fight.
That's why for me, I feel like I try to like give warnings now. I'd be like, hey, watch, like I know myself a bit, like I don't like to say something that I don't want to say. But like if I feel like, you're put in that like constant, like you're in attack mode, like I'm not gonna just like my anxiety is gonna build as that happens. And at some point I'm gonna reach that limit and I'm gonna say something that I really don't want to say. You know what I mean? And for me right now, it's about trying to figure out ways to like kind of de-escalate myself from even getting to that point through kind of establishing communication before, to sort of let people know, hey, like, this conversation right here is triggering me right now. Because after I say that, if they keep going, then I'm like, I tried, and then it gets really difficult for me.
Yeah, Alex, that's a great way, because, eventually our anxiety will go away, as long as we, put in work, obviously. But, in the meantime, while it is there, yeah, I think that's a great idea to give people a heads up, like, hey, I'm kind of feeling a little bit agitated. I'm kind of feeling a little on edge. And even for yourself, being mindful of how you're feeling and only putting yourself in the best situations, you can really handle. And again, practicing that communication, because that's what really relieves that anxiety, is when we own it. We take ownership over. It's like, yeah, I got anxiety, and for a lot of men, that anxiety turns into anger, because anger is a lot more protective than admitting that I'm feeling anxious or scared or uncertain right now. So it's definitely I love that approach, Alex, to, give people that disclosure, as well as be mindful of the environment you're going in and how you feel before you go in.
Thank you. I feel like it's also okay, like while you're going through that, to admit like, hey, I need to focus on myself. I need to take some time for myself here, because like you adding other people's anxieties on top of your own, that could get even more challenging.
Usually when I'm feeling anxious is when I write. So like Rayanne knows, like I'm the 3-line person. Like I'll write a haiku in a minute about something that's bothering me. And I've been through so much anxiety that I'm over 2,000 right now. So yeah. It just that's the way I get through it. Or I'll listen to something funny. Like that's how I get through my anxiety.
One thing I learned before, I forgot where I heard this from. I think it was in a book, but we find these healthy coping mechanisms that get us through, help us through the anxiety. And then we might reach a point where we stop doing those things. And it's like, oh, now I'm back to kind of feeling shitty again. And it's just like, because those things, it helps to continue them and to not just keep them there for a short term. Like meditating, journaling, I was doing for a while, and that helped a lot. And then I stopped, and I was like, why do I feel off? And it's because I got into doing those things that were helping me. And those things will evolve over time. I might not, the things that helped me back then might not help me today. And then I find myself forcing myself to try to do those things that help me when they just don't. And I have to like let them go and learn what else is new for me today, or what will look new for me in 30 years. Like poetry is always going to be there, but in 30 years, what if it's not? I got to find something else that'll work for me, and not try to force that coping mechanism that no longer serves me in the way that I learn how to coexist with my anxiety.
Yeah, that's great, Withdrawn. Yeah, our coping skills definitely evolve over time. For a lot of us, when we first had our traumas, avoiding was the best way to escape those uncomfortable feelings. Like we would run away, or we would, eat food, and those helped in those moments. But now we're at the point where we're no longer in those dangerous situations, to where we need to find more adaptive ways, and those evolve over time. And I like that you mentioned meditation, because I think meditation is a great tool to help us be more in observation of our anxiety, versus like Withdrawn, like you said before, rather than reacting, more so responding. And one thing I remind people is that all of your emotions are information. So when you feel anxious, take time to pause and notice, what is that trying to communicate to you on a deeper level? And that can guide you so well throughout life. My anxiety is now a compass. When I feel uncomfortable, I'm like, okay, this is where I need to go, because I know that's going to take me beyond that comfort zone I have.
I feel that it's tough to find coping mechanisms sometimes. Like I had like, for me, it's varied. It's been like, writing music. It's been playing basketball, working out. I'm like, you know, I'll say like, people could like, you could take shots or you could even shoot up to like get past your anxiety. And they're like completely different things, same word even. And like, that was like something that like, I thought about when I was writing my song, because I had been thinking about it a lot lately when I had that part where it was like, do I grab the Prozac like mama, take Klonopin, or smoke marijuana? How lately I've been understanding what makes me tick and what makes a junkie stick, right? I like growing up, for me, that the Prozac, that was the regular thing. I've been on for like 20, 30 years every day. Like, and then other things like, yeah, I've smoked weed. I've like thought about getting prescriptions for stuff. But then lately when my anxiety started, I feel peaking, I like started becoming like more like kind of aware. Like I don't, like I'm saying, I would never do it, I don't think, but like why people may turn to like some of these hardcore drugs. So like I was interacting with this homeless woman, who was a client at where I work, and she was talking about her substance abuse. And she said she doesn't feel like methadone clinics or treatment programs work for her. So I asked her, I was like, well, what do you think is a trigger for your heroin use? And she said anxiety. And I kind of figured that was going to be the answer, not because like I'm on some like genius crap, but like because I've been feeling the same way. And I've felt that like lately I could understand why someone would do that. And when you look at that and you're looking at like substance abuse too, it's like, okay, everybody has a coping mechanism. Some are going to be better than others for getting through life. And a lot of times people who end up on the streets with severe addiction just unfortunately chose and got stuck in a really bad coping mechanism. So like, even if you want to look at things like drug addiction, sometimes you got to understand and tackle what even led them to that point first.
Yep.
Deep. Thank you for for dissecting your poem and giving us like a better understanding, of what's going on.
Thank you. I mean, if anybody has any questions about it too, like anything, I'm happy to explain. It's like, it is a therapeutic process for me too, writing, because it helps me like kind of, I guess, just think about everything that's going on, which I feel like a lot of us here understand that feeling of having that as one of the like a more positive coping mechanism. But like, I'm curious, like, and I think you were touching on it, Withdrawn, like that, like as your coping mechanisms change, sometimes it's like, oh, the writing, it's not working for me right now. Maybe it will come back and start working for me again in a few months. But like, why do you feel that is like with you? Maybe if like it's like, oh, this comes and goes, like your ability to even use that as a good outlet.
I think some of my coping mechanisms end up dipping into feeling like chores and jobs. Specifically, where it used to be catching up on the latest hip hop and R&B. Every day when I would get home from school, I would do that. It would consume my night. I was like, I got to change this to Fridays because I'm not allowing myself to do anything else. But then Friday comes and there's like 100+ songs to catch up on. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and it's just like this was something that was fun for me to do, and now it feels like something that I'm pressuring myself to do. Like it's like a to-do list thing. It's like when I always say when want tos become have tos, they become dangerous. And you know, sometimes I would force myself to write poems when I don't want to write, when I'm not in the space to write. And that's like not something I wanna make a job for me. But also with that pressure, like, oh, I gotta get this done, I have to get this done, like kind of like I deadline myself for things. And that's something I'm trying to work on in therapy too, with my OCD, you know, and that force to get things done, or like, you know, if I don't do this, like I'm gonna get hit by a car in 2 days, or you know, my significant other is gonna break up with me, or like, you know, and it's hard trying to work around that. But also too, like I realize like everyone has their own what their positive forms of self-care is different for everybody. You know, I definitely feel like no hating on Instagram influencers and stuff, but you know, they tell us what self-care looks like, and that's not how it is for everyone, and we have to like respect that. Like, you know, if some person's like, you have to be journaling, you have to be doing this, and then you try and you don't like it, you're like, okay, shit, something must be wrong with me because it's not working. It's like, no, it's just what somebody else suggested. It doesn't mean you have to take it on. You just got to find what works for you. Journaling is great for everybody else, but you're not everybody else. So it's like, don't let them tell you what your self-care should look like. You kind of have to learn that for yourself, and because we're all different, you know what I mean? Our brains all work differently. I kind of think of it as like we all hold umbrellas for the same reason of protecting us from the rain. So, you know, we're all experiencing the rain coming, but the way the drops hit the umbrella for everyone is going to be different every time. And those are the details, you know. So you might have been through a 2-year relationship. I've been through a 2-year relationship. They ended the same way, but the way you understood your love is different from the way I understood my love. And those are the umbrellas, the relationships and everything that went on, but the details as to what that meant to you and how you cope and how you deal with it are the droplets that fall in the umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. Like you said, we all have different coping mechanisms, and I think it's about having courtesy, you know, having courtesy for everyone else and realizing that everyone is going through something. And just because, you know, our neighbor or someone else isn't using the same coping mechanisms that we are, that doesn't mean that they aren't coping. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm just really happy to be here. And this is a huge eye opener for me, because sometimes when I'm going through my own emotions and feelings, I get wrapped up in them, and like, you know, I lose sight of everyone else's, their trauma and their feelings. So sometimes it's nice to hear it, and it's nice to not feel alone and isolated and feel like I'm just like the only one that has trauma and a little bit of baggage. So yeah, thank you guys for being so just vulnerable.
Yeah, being here was definitely, or at least the build up to it. My anxiety was getting really bad like the closer it came, because like I found myself forcing myself to be in places and spaces I didn't want to be, because I didn't want to disappoint other people. That's not how it was for this though. Like with this, it was more of like, oh, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I have the mental capacity for it. Like, why did I take this? Like kind of like over thinking my what is it? Like just the space I was in. And it'll be like that for a lot of other things too. Like when I was when I got asked to be on like a podcast, I was like, oh man, I should back out of this. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could do it. And I would literally sit on it for hours at a time. I would lay in bed and think about it for hours and convince myself that I can't do it. Or even with a few poets online, we got together and released a book, and I asked to be like on the board. And I was like, why the hell did I do that? I can't do this. I don't have the space for it. I can't like, it took a lot to show up to the meetings and stuff. But like, then when I'm in it, it's like, okay, I can do this. So it's like figuring out what it is that I'm so anxious about that I'm like, I just, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And like, trying to target that, because I'm here now and I'm happy, everything's good. But it's like the build up to it is like scary for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, Withdrawn, I think you did a good job of painting out the two sides of our minds. There's like our true self, which was that initial one that got excited about this, that said yes. And then we have our conditioned mind, was just that mind that was conditioned based off of experiences that we had in our lives that made us feel like we're not good enough, we're going to mess this up, nobody understands us. And it's often that we're in battle with that, but it's good to always remember, okay, when I did commit to this, how did I feel? I felt good. I felt inspired. So let me continue to go that way, regardless of how I feel right now, because otherwise we're still living in that little small box that our anxiety is trying to force us to live in. And although it might feel comfortable, it doesn't really feel comfortable, because we know that we're shrinking ourselves. We know that we're limiting ourselves in a big way. But yeah, thank you for kind of painting that picture for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I also relate to that a lot, because even sometimes when I'm like planning to do something with like friends or whoever, it just the thought of like, like what if something comes up, I gotta cancel or something like that. I don't want to let my friends down or something. And then like I start questioning, going through this like, well, I can't do this, but maybe I can't. But and then I'm like, what the hell is going on in my mind? Why can't I just think? Why does this have to turn into a whole day event of me just sitting back and thinking about something that I could want to be able to make a snap decision on, and just be like, okay, I'm taking care of myself today. I'm taking care of this today instead. Like I end up dragging it on sometimes so much that my whole day becomes anxiety ridden because I can't get these thoughts out of my mind.
Definitely, I'm sure we can all relate to that. Yeah, but I always say it's always good to put yourself, like, if my friend was experiencing this, they wanted to cancel, would I feel like they're a bad person? Like, would I be mad at them? Right. So then just do the same for yourself. And it really is just committing to that one decision. And it's like, whatever the outcome is, I'm going to survive it. I'm going to survive either way. So, with anxiety, a lot of it is just doing it, even though you don't feel comfortable with it, just do it. You have to do the behavior. And eventually, the more you do that behavior where you're making decisions and sticking to it and not even thinking about it, the more you'll feel confident in your decision making and everything else you do. But yeah.
Yes. I feel that. Yeah. You mentioned feeling like you're not going to survive through that process. And I feel that on like, yes, I feel that. Because when anxiety kicks in, it just, it's like, oh my God, like, am I going to make it through this experience? Like, it feels almost like I'm not going to make it through the experience. And then like the Withdrawn said, when it happens and it's taking place, it's, it's refreshing. It's like, oh my God, like the buildup happened and I made it to today, and today is freaking awesome and great. So yeah, overcoming anxiety and those thoughts and the pressure. Yeah, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, sometimes you need to just do some breathing exercises too. Could help a lot. Like breathe in and then breathe out. For some reason though, a lot of times when I do the breathe in and breathe out, I do like that though. So I go and then I breathe out. And I don't know why I always do that, but
Yeah, the breath is definitely powerful. How about we all take a collective deep breath right now?
It sounds like a good idea.
it does.
All right, so let's do like an inhale through our nose for 3 seconds, and then we'll release out like sighing it out nice and slow for 6 seconds. All right, everybody ready? Let's go ahead and inhale in and release it out. Releasing all that stress, all the worry, just happy to be here in this moment with other people who are like-minded and on the same path as us, because we are never alone. We're always surrounded by like energy.
Feels good.
You muted, Rianne.
That was great. That was great. Yeah.
Yeah, the breath is powerful. And before we move on to the next segment, because I know we want to get to that, when you do that 3-6 breath, breathing in through your nose for 3 seconds and then exhaling out slowly for 6 seconds, that activates your parasympathetic nervous system. So that's our relax and restore rather than our fight or flight. So when you're in fear and anxiety, that's that sympathetic where you're ready to fight, flee, or run. But when you want to just calm down, do a deep breath, and that just immediately just activates that. It lets us know that we're safe. If we're breathing nice and slow, that means nothing's wrong. We're good. And eventually, you'll feel your body respond, and then eventually your mind will respond.
Simplicity.
Oh yeah, the simplicity you said.
Mm-hmm. Underrated.
It is. Sometimes it still takes a minute for me because I'll need to go back and forth, and I have this EMDR kit now to kind of go and channel the trauma and all of it, and it's tough. I even used that one time, the EMDR stuff, and then I cried about something that I haven't been able to cry about in a long time, which was really interesting. But I just feel I have so many memories sometimes to unpack, that things that when I was younger, for example, I was 4 at this corner store, and guy came in with a gun, right? And he pointed at me, my mom, and my 2-year-old sister's head. And the store owner takes my mom downstairs, ties her up, and is saying, and you make a wrong move, basically, he's gonna put a cap in me and my sister's head, right? And it 10 years later or so, maybe a little longer, 12 years later, my mom just asked me to draw up the scene in the corner store, and she was surprised that I was able to remember exactly how it happened so well. And then there were certain stuff around that same time that were other more maybe repressed memories that I've tried to uncover. I mentioned in the song with this guy, Frank, who got his throat slit, and I was apparently there, according to my grandma, when she came out and saved him. It's blood was coming out, and I can't help but think a lot of times that when I go into an anxiety mode, certain things just memories will start rushing back, and then I feel I retreat a lot. And then when that comes, even with the deep breaths, even if it helps, it still feels there's this little tremor in my chest that doesn't stop. And that is honestly what I want to get over more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sorry that you went through that, especially at such a young age, and then just to continuously experience those traumas. It's amazing that you're here today, in the condition you are, because, you definitely could have taken a different direction. But yeah, definitely, if you have those deep traumas like that, you have to talk about them and process them, because it's still stored in your DNA. It's stored there. That's why you have those physical reactions sometimes out of nowhere, like panic attacks that you're like, I don't know, nothing sparked it, nothing triggered it. But yeah, you definitely have to release, because all these things are energies that are stored in our bodies. And if we don't deal with them, then they come up as anger, anxiety, physical illnesses, things like that. So yeah, definitely, if you have a therapist or a counselor or, a support group, continue to process that as much as you can and release those energies so that way they're no longer stored inside.
Yeah. I felt at a time too that like, oh, it's crazy to think that something that happened when I was like 4 or something that happened when I was 8 or something is still is a trigger for anxiety to this day.
Oh yeah.
Like it made me feel like I was crazy to even think that could be the case. And now I'm realizing maybe that's not so crazy to think.
No, so by age 5, that's kind of when our personality forms. That's when, so anything that happens in that age, most of the traumas, anxiety people have now, the beliefs that we have about ourselves were formed at the age of 5. So that's when you really start to develop your worldview. You really, that's when you enter elementary school, and that's there for a reason, because you have a certain level of cognitive capacity to make sense of the world. So when you experience traumas that early, you're in your mind creating a belief that this world is dangerous. So now you're going to continue to see evidence of this world being dangerous. And then some things, you're not just putting yourself in, things are happening to you. So your brain is ultimately trying to help you to survive this world. So it's going to help you to be hyper sensitive to negative experiences. So you're going to remember those a lot more vividly, because that's how it keeps you alive. So you'll avoid those things. But unfortunately, once that anxiety is kind of in our system and we feel like we have to kind of be on edge, then as we go throughout our life, now an exam on a test is as scary as, that gun to your head. Right. So it's just our brain will start to generalize that fear to everything that's somewhat uncomfortable to us. So yeah, what happens early in life is super, super important, but you can work through those and process those traumas.
Yeah. And my last question is, how much would you say like anxiety is passed down?
I mean, I don't know the statistics, but both genetically it's passed down. There's this field of epigenetics. It's basically how our experiences turn on and off certain genes. So one, you're being passed down trauma genetically, as well as what you observe, social learning. So what you're observing around you. So you're learning it from your own personal experiences, what you have genetically, and then what you're observing socially. So yeah.
Thank you.
Rayanne, you're muted.
I was just saying, wow, hereditary anxiety, the fact that we can get, anxiety from our parents, like that's just, Lord, scary. But yeah, I'm really grateful that there's coping mechanisms, even though I may get some of my anxiety from my parents, or even though my parents give me anxiety at times. I'm really glad that there are coping mechanisms out there, like you mentioned, therapy, love therapy. Yeah, I'm really grateful that there's mechanisms out there to help me and help others deal with and process, the circumstances and situations that are giving us anxiety.
Any last comments on that before we move on to Withdrawn's portion? If not, I think we could move forward. If the council is in agreement, I say we move forward. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yeah.
I'll step in. Okay, so I have a poem as well. Mine is called As a Puerto Rican and Black Man, I'm Confused. So the result of my light skin automatically means I'm mixed. Reminds me of the post Aisha wrote about how this woman said because of her hair, she must be mixed too. Like being black alone with what we consider good hair cannot exist. My aunt's husband is Dominican, and he's darker than my father. But we fail when we see skin color and assume someone's race based off facial features and characteristics. I regret not punching this one kid in the mouth freshman year of college when Doug and I were looking for a party. You see, my friend asked him how the party was. His response was that it's good, but they're not letting Mexicans in. Perfect example of misconception given Doug is Ecuadorian. You have a certain look and people are too quick to judge the book. I really want to hope that kid got his. But instead, I pray that God guides him. It takes a lot to learn to forgive. Apparently, when you're mixed, you're either more of that than this, less of that than this. Oh, you're more black because you listen to rap. And what kind of Puerto Rican are you because you don't speak Spanish? They say we sound white when we talk proper or they say we sound white when the talk is proper or polite. Like, yo, get out of here with that shit. When I was younger, I used to lie about enjoying sports. That was till I couldn't take the faking it anymore. As a young Puerto Rican and black man, I'm confused. Why do we praise taking the white man's girl, but then get on our sons when he chooses to date a white girl? Let's also talk about how it's been okay for black men to join in on tearing down black women. Why? I feel it hurts more when Jenga is being played by people of the same race. The Hispanic mothers are always getting stared down in public when they're speaking Spanish. And I don't remember the TV show, but I couldn't agree more when someone mentioned a black woman being passionate is viewed by others as ratchet. I've developed the issue with white people saying the N-word, especially at concerts when they put more emphasis on it than I do. In writing this, I felt obligated to assist, making it obvious that my melanin appreciation does not mean I am anti-white. We are God's children, therefore making you all my brothers and sisters, regardless of color. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter how light or how dark, you're pretty and handsome just the way you are. If God wanted you any lighter, darker, taller, shorter, he would have made you so when you were created. There are some things in this world I question. However, in ending this poem, I realize maybe I am not that confused. I know who I am. A young Puerto Rican and black man. No longer do I feel the need to prove. People will judge how they want to. The thoughts and actions of others may be confusing, but do not let them confuse you. For it is only known in your heart who you truly are. Thank you.
Yes. Um, yeah, relatable. Definitely. Microaggression is very real. Yeah, it's kind of one of my triggers. Um, yeah, I haven't really figured out how to deal with that one. When people make certain remarks, like you were talking about the hair, or just like skin complexion, like, oh my gosh, you have good hair, or you're so, light to be black. Like, there's just certain comments that I just, like, I don't know how to handle them. Like, well, again, microaggression is real. So yeah, thank you for talking about that. And I think it kind of meshes with anxiety, because dealing with those things can give me anxiety. Like, it just makes me like uncomfortable. Like, how do I respond, without blowing things even more out of proportion? Because I feel like those comments, in a sense, are just like uncalled for. Like, I don't get how people don't get like that the wording, or whatever they're trying to say is just, it's not like, what hair or what skin complexion am I supposed to be? So yeah, thank you for addressing those things, because they are definitely real. And yeah, yeah, thank you.
You. Yeah, when I was younger, I remember it was in middle school. But it was okay for everyone, including myself, the people like my friends around me, and even people that weren't my friends, just in general, that you were more of value if you didn't have darker skin. And it's hard for kids who don't really know what the world fully looks like yet, and understanding exactly what prejudice is, what we're taught by who were around. And I legit remember, like, when people used to try to figure out my race, like, I would go along with it. They'd be like, you look Dominican, but I wouldn't tell them what I am. Or like, I'd say that I was more Puerto Rican than I was black, or I wouldn't even mention that I was black. And I used to like deny that for the comfort of other people around me. And I hate that I did that. I got on myself about that as I got older. But I also realized that was what they were like, that's what was normal in the area I was in, and people kind of teaching me that that was okay to deny that part of myself. But then as I got older, like, I embraced the hell out of it now, and like, I fucking love being black. I wouldn't have it any other way, you know. And but it just showed me like how important it is for us to teach kids to embrace what they are, no matter what they look like. And for anyone that tells you different, like, fuck off. It's hard, because I mean, you learn from your friends a lot, and then you take that and you take that with you when you're older, and you kind of see reasons as to why people wanted you to lessen that part or suppress that part of you. But it's up to you to be like, no, this is me, and if you don't like that, that got nothing to do with me and everything to do with you. So you figure that out, because I know who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your experience, obviously, like growing up in New York City, right?
Yeah.
Is there because of the diversity of New York City, I think there's like other elements that aren't necessarily seen in a lot of the country, where a lot of the country it may seem as more black and white, but like you look in, you know, the Bronx, Upper Manhattan, wherever, and it's like, okay, you got you got African Americans, you got Afro Latinos, you got Africans, and how they all view each other still seems to like kind of go on a certain degree of like at times like you see a lot of where it's still like this like impact of white supremacy still reigns over, like with colorism, or like where it's like, oh, a lot of times you'll see Afro Latinos, like Dominicans, even really dark skinned Dominicans who are treated worse by other Dominicans for being darker, but still say, oh, I'm not black, I'm Dominican, and then go and will like talk bad about Haitians or something, right? And then you have a lot of African Americans. I even have heard from like African friends saying like how they'll be like they'd be bullied for being African by African Americans in high school or middle school, because it was like, oh, like you're from Africa, so like you don't shower, you smell, or there's like fucking rhinoceroses appearing right outside of your home all the time. And they're like, I did not live in like a hut somewhere, I lived in a city, or I lived in a suburb outside of Ghana or something, like outside of like Accra. It's not like it's like these images that they just get kind of like blasted throughout our society, and like no community could escape it, because there's always some sort of slight difference that could be picked at, and it seems like it's always following on the path of whatever is less white becomes easier to like victimize, easier to discriminate against.
Mm-hmm.
That's like from the playground to the job market.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, Raya, and like it goes, prejudice and race and all these things go so hand in hand with our mental health. For even if you didn't experience like trauma overtly, just living in a society where the image of you, I think a lot, like nowadays we're doing a lot more of putting out, TV shows and there's a lot more representation nowadays. But I think when we were growing up, there wasn't that much representation. So when we weren't seeing our faces in certain places and only seeing our faces in other places that happen to be lower on the totem pole, that creates this belief in our minds that we're not good enough or we're not as good as. So we're already going to be struggling with mental illness in the form of self-doubt that then becomes experiences that create personalities of being lesser. So, it's inevitable, if you're a person of color in this country, especially if you grew up in our generation or earlier, that you have this imprinted in you that then leads to more negative experiences. So, and I think it's, definitely as somebody who's biracial, it's like, I don't even get to belong to a certain community because I'm not this enough for this one or this enough for this one. So I'm kind of just like here in limbo, and I'm a minority. So it's like you kind of got the double whammy. But yeah, this definitely goes hand in hand.
Then you have people who like want you to be one or the other. Like they want you to be more Puerto Rican or they want you to be more black. And it's like, I can be whatever the heck I want. Like if I want to listen to rock music, I can listen to rock music. Like they'd be like, that's not for black people. They don't listen to it. And it's like, who says that though?
Right.
Like, are you complaining about the black music artists who are making rock music, or is it because me personally, you feel that I can't do it, and it's just like they feel like because you're this race, you should be feeding into that stereotype, and that if you're not feeding into a stereotype, that you don't belong in it. Like, oh, like if someone's like, oh, you're black, like I love chicken, but if someone's like, oh, you're black and you don't love chicken, like that's weird, I never heard of that. And it's just like, bro, everybody loves chicken, you know what I mean? Like, and even when I was younger too, like we we were taught like I always, I hate when people say she's pretty for a black girl.
Oh
And
my God.
black women are beautiful,
Like black women can be pretty. I
and
don't.
it was, yeah, and it was almost like even black men would say that. A lot of my black friends would say that about women, black women, and it's just like, man, that shit hurts when Jenga's being played by the people of the same race, like, you know, like that. How does that look like, you know, when we're over here saying like, you know, I just like, I don't really date black girls, like, you know, it's just, it's uncalled for.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the prompt that I had was, where does your mind and body go when reacting to your identity being under attack?
Mm. Mm.
For me, it's
Sometimes I just, that was it. Can you hear?
You're breaking up.
yeah.
Sometimes I just freeze up. Like, yeah. I remember a while ago, I used to work at a restaurant. I was a server, and I had bangs, but my hair was curly. And one of the other workers, she had bangs as well, but you know, she was white and her hair was straight. And I came into work and my bangs were, you know, out because where else could they go? And my manager, you know, he kind of like, not kind of, but he called me out for it. And he's like, oh, you can't wear your hair like that. And, you know, the other server who was white, who had straight bangs, like I kind of looked over there at her and I'm like, wait, like it's kind of the same concept, except, you know, my hair, it doesn't do what hers does. Like mine's is curly. But yeah, like after that moment, like of kind of like trying to speak for myself and stand up for myself and it just being brushed off like, oh no, you're tripping. Like it's clear, they're clearly, you know, two different hairstyles, two different textures, rah, rah, rah. Now I kind of just like freeze or just walk away, like, because it takes me a while to process things and moments. So I try to freeze in a sense and kind of just walk away from it so that I don't overreact, you know, because it is annoying dealing with that over and over again. Like, you know, the wording and the phrasing, like it's kind of, you know, annoying to deal with that. Oh, you're so cute for a black girl, or oh, you have good hair. Like, I don't even understand what that means. So when my mind and body reacts, is I don't really know how to, because I'm still trying to process. Well, what do you mean? You know, when people ask the question, oh, what are you? Well, what do you mean? Like, I'm human like you. You want to know what race I am? Like, so yeah, my mind and body go different places. Sometimes I'm ready to fight. And sometimes I'm just like, you know what? I'm just not in the mood to break things down from A to Z to you right now and like explain why this is inappropriate. So yeah, I'll just catch you on another day, or maybe I'll send you the link to this workshop.
Yeah, that definitely speaks to the dynamics of that situation. As a person of color, it's like not only does it deal with my emotions for feeling hurt by what you said, but now I'm trying to process how can I respond in a way that's not threatening to you when you're already going to perceive me as more threatening, just if I'm getting emotional about something. So like, yeah, and in that moment, it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't say anything, you know, because I definitely have moments where I'm just like, I don't say anything because I'm afraid of how I'll be perceived if I speak up for myself. So I'm just like, whatever. But it's like, at the same time, we still have a responsibility to educate people, because otherwise they're going to keep doing that. You know, they're not going to learn whether it's intentional or unintentional, because a lot of people, their biases are unconscious, you know.
Right.
So there is this role we have to do. And yeah, it's us being a bigger person and having to put on a lot more responsibility, but you know, at least it might prevent them from saying something to the next person, you know, who might be having a bad day already, and it could be one comment that could just be that straw that broke the camel's back for them. So it definitely is a weight that we have to bear as people of color, and that's why it's so good for us to practice, our self-care and our mental health, because it's inevitable that we're going to have these situations happen. It's just the culture of the society we live in right now. So it's just, how can I best prepare myself so that way in that moment, I can give myself that self-care while also educating that person in front of me. And it's not our responsibility, but it kind of is our responsibility, because no one else is going to do it, and no one else can do it besides, us who's been personally affected by it.
I feel for me, there's several dynamics, because I've been correctly identified and attacked and incorrectly identified and attacked, if that makes sense. So like, I've been correctly like identified as being Jewish, and had comments at me, or people not knowing I'm Jewish and still making comments about Jews. And then I've also had times where people would misidentify me as being like one of them ISIS people or something, basically. And like, which is a weird and unique situation where it's like, I'm defending myself, which sometimes I'll just rock with it and be like, yeah, okay, screw it. I'm an Arab Muslim now, and I'm gonna be defending all Arab Muslims everywhere. Or I'm gonna be like truly saying it, well, like, I'm Jewish, I'm gonna defend myself, but I'm also gonna defend this group. But like, so like, yeah, like, I remember when someone's like, you seem like Taliban, but like, which was funny, because they were a Trump supporter, and then after calming them down, I was able to convince them that the Taliban and Trump supporters have more in common than the Trump supporters and Democrats. And then they were like, well, if you could maybe you could kill Biden for us. And I'm like, I got you. I'm like, you've been reported. but then, like, on the more serious note, like with comments that I faced growing up, it was like one that stuck with me when I was like in 4th or 5th grade. It was like, there was this friend of mine, and there was, like little, like, elementary school dollars, right? They're fake dollars, but the kids love them and whatnot. And they were going missing. So they blamed it on this one friend of mine, Aaron, who was Jewish. And Aaron to this day denies stealing them, right? And I remember, though, they were like, some of the kids were talking about it, and they were like, oh yeah, he did it because he's like, he's like a Jew. That's what they do. And they said that in front of me, and I'm like, well, I'm Jewish. They're like, oh, but you're cool for a Jew. I was like, that registered with me. I'm like, what's that supposed to mean? Or like comments about hair, like about like, oh, look at their Jew froze, like it's kind of like disgusting and stuff. And as time went on, comments like that would continue, and into college, where I'd hear some sort of more like supposedly intellectual anti-Semitism and intellectual racism of like, oh, this group, Jews are like this and blacks are like that, right? Even in classrooms at times. Or just comments like, oh, what's the difference between a Jew and a pizza? One came out of the oven. And I'd get annoyed by that more than anything, right? And about a lot of those jokes, because I'd be like, yo, like, really? Like, you think that's funny? I know you just Googled that on some like offensive joke list and then decided to say it to the first Jew you ever met, right? But then there were other stuff where it was like, okay, if other people aren't calling out and it's said in a classroom, instead of being comfortable confronting it, I start to like just get uncomfortable and like a little anxious. Or someone approaches me on the subway and stares me down because I had a menorah, and like wouldn't like pretty much leave me alone, like trying to threaten me. Like I just kind of tried to ignore him, but I wasn't trying to be in a fight. And then this scariest one was when two Nazis with pit bulls, I made eye contact with them in Washington Heights, which is a very weird place to see Nazis. I don't know what they were doing there. I think they were handing out like, they were like putting up flyers or something, like for their little like creepy crap. But like I was like, first my mind went to, I'm like, whoa, those are some like very big, tatted, bald white guys. That's kind of alarming, right? And I'm like, they have pit bulls. And then I'm like, I saw their tattoos and I'm like, oh, they're Nazis. They have Nazi insignia like all over their body. So we made eye contact. My heart like jumped through like 20 windows. And so like, and I felt like a lot of those experiences when I try and talk to friends would almost be like ignored because it wasn't really understood that that's happening still. Almost got in, like you mentioned with your friend at the bar freshman year. I had an instance like that where someone said to me, you know, Hitler wasn't all wrong. And interestingly, like I didn't do much to defend myself there, but later he said something when he was watching like a CSI show in the dorms and saying how he loves watching CSI because he loves to see Black people get arrested. That's when I felt more comfortable confronting him about it, because it was almost like, I don't know, it was like it wasn't having to like defend myself as much. So I felt a little easier doing it than if it was like the pressure of defending myself, when sometimes I was like, I'd rather have someone stand up for me instead, because I want to stand up for my people who I really care about, like my friends, my family, like the people I grew up with who are like Black and Hispanic. And then I guess I just felt a little isolated. But then I also like, you know, realized too that I could go through all of that in America, right? And that's while I could still, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, hide, like, and just kind of like go by and not be like outwardly like a like minority every day. So, and like I think that's a unique thing about the experience that I go through, even in the wake of like more and more anti-Semitic attacks or anti-Asian attacks you see in New York now. Those both happen almost daily. But sometimes I'm just thinking, at least at the end of the day, I could hide to an extent and like just not always have that pressure on me. So I think that's like kind of an interesting thing I've thought about, like my prejudice that I've experienced, how it could help me relate to other forms of prejudice, but how it's also distinct.
Ray, and I saw your message. Did you guys want to do? Okay.
I don't think we have enough time for the last poem. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Does everyone want to stick around for a little, like 10 or so minutes over, just to go over the last poem?
Yeah, that's cool with me.
Alex?
Right. We ready?
We ready?
We're ready. All right. So.
Oh wait, not ready. I gotta pull it up. Okay.
Let's see. It's
You guys-
called, as of right now, it's called Untitled.
Yes.
Which is a really telling name, if you ask me. So I'll just wait. Published on December 7th, 2021.
Mama, we on the World Wide Web. Okay.
The 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, actually.
Look at you, historian.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking on like the Jewish stuff, I've actually been controversially grateful that Pearl Harbor happened. I know that's not something you should say really, but I'm gonna say it because I don't think that the US would have gone into the war had it not happened. And I don't know what would have happened then. I mean, who knows? So that has nothing to do with prejudice or anxiety, really. I mean, maybe like it did in the context of why we didn't go into the war at the time, but like, I don't know. I'm just rambling until we get the poem up.
I got it up. I'm ready. I got it up. Can you guys hear me? Right. Mic check. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It took for the whole meeting. My phone's anxiety has calmed down. All right. I'm ready.
All right. I used to get pennies tossed at my feet.
Now my delusions got me feeling like a penny is all I need.
And in reality, none of this makes sense to me.
Hard to believe my grade school got bombed.
Hard to believe my mind is this strong.
Hard to believe the monster wasn't me all along.
It really hurt when that class took a turn because someone spoke on my identity wrong.
People think I'm weird. That's a tragedy for them because they got me all wrong.
It's hard to convince myself that when it comes to the core part of who I am, there is nothing wrong.
Still struggle with the fact I was nearly attacked twice.
Died and came back twice.
Cut one arm, then had to do the other because my illness said in order to feel right, I had to do that. Twice.
Don't joke about me in an oven, say Hitler wasn't all bad, or call me a flippin' Jew.
I know you tell me you don't see colors because you can't see what I'm going through.
Please respect my boundaries when things start to make me feel uncomfortable.
Rebecca's friend is brain dead after getting curb stomped by a man in jack boots.
Hard to kill prejudice when it grows from the root.
Easy to revive anxiety when it's something that you're used to.
My grandpa's graveyard had the tombstones toppled. Even in death, we find no peace.
It says that I'm the unfitting piece. Because every day my brain provides reason as to why the blame has got to be me. I know they want to help, but half the time it feels like everyone is bothering me. To be honest, sometimes I don't ever even really want to leave. Discomfort can be scary. But staying comfortable doesn't always teach you how to breathe.
My skin complexion is giving me anxiety, trying to figure out where I fit in society. It's like it's bad news to be Black and thriving. It's like racism is hiding in plain sight, and then my anxiety strikes. No, I am not all right. But guess what? In due time,
we gonna be all right.
Hey, yes, we.
Right. This was an amazing workshop.
Yeah.
we talked about dealing with anxiety and prejudice and feeling or self-doubting ourselves and sometimes feeling worried and maybe even exhausted. Yeah, and we talked about our tics and triggers, coping mechanisms. So I think this was really dope and something that we need more of. So yeah, thank y'all.
Really great conversation. Really great conversation.
Definitely.
Thank you guys.
Really enjoyed it.
Yes, follow us online. Where can they follow you, Alex?
There's my Instagram, which is Alex Saltzerico. That's not actually my last name. It's a play on a combination of my last name and like one of my best friend's first name. Just because we have this weird thing where like anything, his name's Federico, so like everything like that could be done with a Rico at the end, I just started adding. But yeah, that's sort of that's the name. And then yeah, I haven't been as active lately because of my anxiety. So, but you know, in due time, it's going to be all right. Right?
We gonna be all right. What about you, the Withdrawn?
You can find me at thewithdrawn.com, and when you scroll all the way down, you'll see the links to like my Instagram and Facebook and all that. Currently off social media at the moment. Was aiming for a month, which I did last year too, and ended up being 5 months. And I have a feeling it's gonna be the same. It might end up 5 months again. So who knows? No rush to come back. But
I can really feel that because I'm not on that. What about you, Dr. Makeda?
So you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Makeda. That's DrMakeda. And then my website will be up soon, which will be www.drmakeda.com.
Hey, shout out to the website.
And you'll find tons of meditations and mindset tips and all that stuff on my Instagram.
No.
You're still there.
She went into meditation.
But yeah, this has been awesome. I appreciate you guys being open and vulnerable. It's so awesome to see, masculine figures, acknowledging emotions and pains and traumas. And I think that's something our society needs a lot more of, is seeing that. And especially for these young boys out here who are living the traumas, but don't know how to process it, don't know that they should, don't know that it's okay for them to feel scared and hurt at times. So I appreciate, you guys and what you're doing.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I will say I feel like it's definitely been changing a lot more lately too, with like more like men who are like kind of being like openly and emotionally vulnerable, and like I like look at how like hip hop has changed, So I think that there's a lot of progress being made on that note right now.
Oh yeah, definitely agree. I feel like there's definitely an awakening happening. And I think people are becoming aware, especially since the lockdowns. People are like, oh, I got to deal with this. Once the distractions went away, we had to be with ourselves. We could really see the things we needed to work on. And it's great to do it with community like we are here.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if Rayanne's device died. Maybe that was the oh no. So maybe, I don't know if we want to close it out, or do we want to just keep the convo going?
This is like the overtime or something right now. We're on overtime. If you want to stick around, you can. If not, then just get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I think we still have one more guest in here, Alberto. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating in the comment section. Feel free if there's anything else you want to add before we prepare to close out
Let's see. Hmm. Glad you came, Alberto.
Yeah, thank you for joining. We appreciate it. Thank you.
I feel like another thing is like I'm really interested in meditation. I just don't feel I could do it well. Like I feel like whenever I try and meditate, like I could do it, I'll do it for a minute, and then by like the second minute, I start thinking of some random stuff that like just gets in my head, and then like I can't continue it.
But
And like sometimes it's bad stuff that like gets in my head, right? The stuff that makes me anxious. Other times it's just random, just completely random crap. Like, oh, like I wonder how the Bulls game is gonna go today.
yeah.
And then I'm like, and then I just start like having a whole conversation in my head again about everything, and then I'm like, oh, I guess it didn't work this time.
Yeah. Well, with meditation, it's definitely a practice where it's a practice.
Yeah.
So the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say for beginners who do have a busy mind, start with guided meditations. That way, when you get distracted, you're like, oh, I'm not listening, and you come back, So, and even just that process of being present and then thinking and then coming back, okay, now I'm thinking again, like that's a good mental exercise. So that way, when you are having a negative thought because of anxiety, you can notice it a lot faster and then try to focus on something more positive or utilize a coping skill rather than sitting there and continuously ruminating on that negative thought for a long period of time. Just that practice of going back and forth in meditation can help with that. So it's just be patient with yourself. Use a guided meditation, do it consistently, and over time you'll start to notice like, oh, like I'm more aware of my thoughts, and oh, when I go into meditation, I feel like I'm able to really go deep inside myself. That'll happen over time.
Yeah, I remember I heard someone say once that like recognizing that you're not present is a form of presence in of itself, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. You'll definitely become more aware of like how often you're not present once you actually are conscious of there's a thing called not being present. Yeah.
We do like everything on like autopilot. So even like paying attention to little things, like if you brush your teeth with their opposite hand, or like you actually chew your food and taste it, and like don't use like a phone or TV while you're eating, like you notice those little things, and like it's wild. It's wild how it adds up into like realizing how much we can miss out on how we can exist but not really live.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of the time we're not in the present moment. We're either thinking about the past or worried about the future. And I'm really big in teaching people about energy and manifestation. And it takes being in the present moment to really kind of feel the juice of life. Like it's here in this now. And it's like, this moment is never going to happen again. Like this is where the connection is. This is where all the energy lies versus in these like realities that we're creating in our heads that don't even exist, but we spend so much time in those things that aren't even happening right now. So yeah, the more we can be here in the now, like that's where everything is at.
That's why I like, and it wasn't like I always liked doing this, because like I've always like kind of been like, a city kid, a city guy, where it's like, oh, I want to be in the city. I want all these conveniences around me. I want to be able to like go run over to like the bodega at 3 a.m, right? Like I want to, but then I'm like, oh my God, it feels so good sometimes just getting out in nature, right? And like the just like serenity and peacefulness of it. Like I did something on a day off of work I never thought I would ever do. And yeah, it was just in Central Park, but like I just walked into the park and I saw a hawk, right? And then I started following this hawk. I started stalking the hawk, right? And I went from like it kept going from tree to tree, and I kept following it like 6 trees. Next thing you know, like I'm like on the hunt for this hawk with like all the bird watchers of Central Park. And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm enjoying this so much.
Yeah.
But like I'm like not like focusing on anything but this bird who apparently was like named Pal Al. It was like a 30-year-old hawk. Is one of the like expert elderly bird watchers was telling me, and they're teaching me all this stuff about a hawk. But I had some like, I don't know, like innate like predatory instincts where I was able to like follow this like probably the most like the apex predator of the park around.
Yeah.
And I got lost doing it for hours, and then I was like, oh wow, this was a good day.
Yeah.
I just forgot about like my phone for the most part. Aside from taking some photos, I didn't need to contact anyone. I didn't need to like be like going from task to task. I just kind of got consumed with the natural world around me, and it felt nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds like you let your inner child out to play.
Yeah,
Just
I did. And I mean, also it's just sometimes like being in nature around trees and soil, like there's a lot of beautiful things to see out there and miss. And it's like, yeah, I don't see myself living out in the woods, right? Because there's not necessarily enough there for me to like truly enjoy all the time. Not enough conveniences, not enough bodegas, not enough bacon, egg, and cheese. but like I'm realizing more and more that's like the type of escape that sometimes I need.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't know if Rayanne is going to come back on. Do one of you guys want to close us out? Or if, I mean, I got to run, but I don't know if you guys want to keep it going.
Yeah, I should go too. I got a bunch of cleaning that I never finished last night. But, yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys, and thank you, Alberto, too, for showing up. We appreciate you, and enjoy your weekend, guys, man. Live life. Love it.
Yeah, hope we do this again some other time. So yeah, and you guys stay in touch for sure.
Thank you.
All right, peace.
Peace.